So good afternoon. In the next few minutes, I would like to talk about my PhD them and about my progress, my researches. My name is Nóra Zimonyi. I'm a conductor and a PhD student. I work at András Pető Primary School. My vision is that in the future, I would like to live in a world in which citizens with CP are a productive and integral part of society. I'm a conductor, therefore I would like to develop the skills of patients living with CP. I'm fully committed to a more targeted development program for people with CP that could also improve their quality of life. I'm currently working on 2 projects in order to get to know the executive functions of people with cerebral palsy. You can see the first project title, which I will present below. It is a comparative study of the executive functions in these 2 groups. Why is it important to examine the executive functions in this population? Children with cerebral palsy may have problems with movement and walking, and difficulty speaking, learning difficulties, and cognitive impairments. But we don't know much about their executive functions. However, these are important for school and life success. Therefore, the aim is to examine the executive functions of people with cerebral palsy. First of all, let me tell a few words about executive functions. These are a set of mental skills that include working memory, inhibitory control, and cognitive flexibility. Working memory, which allows informations and thoughts to be kept in our minds and manipulated with them. Inhibitory control, which includes self-control, inhibition of unwanted behavior, and selective attention. Cognitive flexibility, which means that we can solve a problem in several ways. We are able to quickly switch between our mental sets and strategies. We use these skills every day to learn, work, and manage daily life. Trouble with executive functions can make it hard to focus, follow directions, and handle emotions. You can see our clinical question above, and we have 2 hypotheses. We compared the executive function test results between infant cerebral palsy and typically developing population. The selection is done. Finally, 14 articles have been selected. You can see the overall results of the executive functions. The articles used the difference test, and these tests move on different scales. Therefore, we didn't use raw mean difference, but we used standardized mean difference. The results are on one side, and if we look at the heterogeneity, we see that it is a bit heterogeneous. The results show that CP's people have disadvantage of executive functions compared to their typically developing peers. We got significant results, and if we read the articles, we can see that the differences are not just statistically, but clinically as well. We also viewed the results on the components. Now we can see the results of one of the executive functions components, namely working memory. Similarly to the overall functions, the results are on the left side, but the results of the articles are more homogeneous. If we look at the standardized mean difference, it shows us that the CP populations has a disadvantage in this component, which is significant. If we look at the results of the inhibitory control, they are very similar to the ones as in the working memory. The results are also on the left side, and the results of the articles are also homogeneous. The standardized mean difference is also significant, which means the CP population also had a disadvantage in this component. Regarding cognitive flexibility, the results are a little bit different because the results of the articles are on the left side, but the heterogeneity is higher. About the strengths and limitations, this is the first meta-analysis in this area. We collected enough articles. We were able to examine the components of the executive functions. There are more articles about children than the adults, so we plan to do age subgroup analysis. And also limitations that different tests measure the same outcome, so we performed standardization. As we assumed, cerebral palsy people have disadvantage in the performance of their executive functions compared to their typically developing peers. So it is very important that we build into their development programs. It would be useful to do researches in the future to examine the effectiveness of development programs. The second project would be to analyze and publish the results of a research. This research was made some years before. It's a descriptive cross-sectional study about the executive function in two groups, children with CP and the typically developing children. We have the necessary approvals. On the CP group, the inclusion criteria was the diagnosis of cerebral palsy with ICD code. Exclusion criteria was if the child had been diagnosed with any psychological disorder or epilepsy. The control group matched to the CP sample by age and gender. They were typically developing children, while exclusion criteria was similar than in the CP group. We used these tests, you can see above. We couldn't take every test with everyone. For example, we didn't take the Stroop test with children who couldn't read well. So we had 54 participants. There were children who started taking the test but dropped out because we found some problem during the process. So the highlighted numbers show the final number of participants. The two figures shows that the age and gender matching were fine in the two groups. We have preliminary results, although these have yet to be interpreted. What are the strengths and limitations of this research? The sample size is larger than previous researches, even if we couldn't take all tests with everyone. This study contains 7 tests, and also most articles use 3-4 tests. Furthermore, this is the first study that comprehensively examined the cerebral palsy population. It is a non-multi-strand study because special equipment was needed to measure performance. And the planned submission dates are April and May. I would like to close my presentation with this quote below because it is completely in line with conductive education, my vocation, and every child means every child, including kids with cerebral palsy. Thank you for your kind attention. You're welcome to any question or comments.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nóra. What is your next step regarding your own results? What about the publication? Is it ready or should be ready shortly, or what is your plan? Because you have excellent data. I even know that you have more data that you showed here.
Yes, the next step we plan to do some subgroup analysis, and after. Yes, I can starting wrote the article.
Please do.
My question is regarding to your meta-analysis and to the previous question. What kind of subgroup analysis do you plan to make? You mentioned that the articles used different scoring systems. Do you will take it as a base, or do you plan to use others?
Yes, thank you for your question. We plan to do subgroups analysis by age and diagnosis and gross motor function classification on the CP group, of course.
Is there any targeted therapy which can develop the skills, the executive function of the CP patients?
I found some developed program improving executive functions in the literature. For example, mindfulness program, or for example, targeted computerized working memory or inhibitory control task trainings. So yes.
I'm just wondering, what was the selection criteria system for determining the typically developed control group?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we choose children from primary and grammar school. Also, they had to be average on the basis of competence measurements. Competence measurements. Thank you.